joined by two legends of the Curragh and Kildare town as well, in one of the most historic yards in Ireland. It's Cunningham Lodge. Mrs. Barbara Collins, wife of the late Con Collins, is with me on my right, and to my left, of course, is Helen O'Sullivan as well, who's been heavily involved in so many different aspects of the racing industry and teaching industry around Kildare all her life as well. Mrs. Collins, great to be in Cunningham Lodge. It's the most historic yard and probably one of the oldest yards in the country, not only in the Curragh but in the country.
I couldn't agree with you more, and you are more than welcome.
Thank you very much.
And I love Helen very much, and she's been here since 1975, and we've been friends ever since. Yeah, and she lived here as part of the family. Yeah.
Okay, and how did the relationship start, Helen?
I was in school and Daddy came in. I was used to ride lots of pony racing, and Daddy came in one day and he threw a paper on the Irish Independent on the table, and he said, "There you are, now there's a school for you up in the Curragh," which was the apprentice jockey school started. And unknowns to them, I wrote a letter, could I be apprentice jockey? And Derek O'Sullivan tells a story where he said to Stan Cosgrove, "What do we do about this? A woman wants to be a jockey, a girl wants to be a jockey." So they diplomatically wrote back and told me that girls couldn't be jockeys, which surprised me because I was riding against all the greats, Tommy Carmody, Val O'Connell, at pony racing, so I didn't know the difference, and I was winning pony racing, so I knew no difference. So anyway, when I did my leaving cert, then Daddy, I wanted to do a summer job for the summer holidays, and I asked Daddy would he get me up to the Curragh, and he was friendly with Laddie Mooney, who Con used to go fishing with.
Yeah.
And he asked them could they take me on for summer holidays, and they did, and I was here for the summer holidays, and I suppose Mr. Collins saw that I could ride as good as...
And she could work.
Yeah, and he wanted maybe to reward me at the end of the summer, and I was only 6.5 stone weight, and most apprentices then you had to be 15, 5 stone and 5 foot, but I was 17 and 6 stone and 5 foot. So he
very, very heavy, 6 stone.
Imagine doing your leaving, sir.
Yeah.
My sister said to me, "Geez, I was more than that when I made my first communion night, you know."
Yeah.
But anyway, Mr. Collins, in fairness to him, I always called him Mr. Collins and Mrs. Collins because they were like, that was out of respect for the way we were taught, like, and I learned so many life skills here for life that have carried me through. But I think it was the best apprenticeship for life that I ever served. But Mr. Collins had 3 other daughters. They were very young, Sheena, Tracy, Natalie, and he treated me like his own. And he loaded 3 of us up into the car, Tony Gorman, John O'Neill and myself, and the parents were to meet us over there, and he made no difference. I don't think he even told the stewards that like one of them was a girl. So we went into the steward's room, and I can still have flashed, but Peter Martin is the only one that I remember. I remember these little glasses and looking at them over like this. And Daddy was standing behind and Mr. Collins was there, and they kind of looked and said, "Do you realise, Mr. Maloney, that the Curragh is not a very safe place for a young girl?" And but I live in the house like the family with Mr. and Mrs. Collins, and they said, "Oh, at least that's good." So they gave me my licence.
That was it.
And that was it. And he put me up in No Princess at the Phoenix Park, and I finished first the first time out, and then the next one was a quick run shortly afterwards, and I won. And I think Stephen Crane was second and Robbie Edery was third, and Robbie Edery ended up
Pat's brother.
Pat's brother. He was champion apprentice that year, the uni there, and I finished 5th in it because you got so many points per race that you won or finished 2nd or 3rd. And that was the start of it really, Barbara, wasn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then she was doing her teacher exam, and then she did her HDiv from here, and she came.
I lived here and I worked,
and she came over here and she worked, and she went and she did her HDiv, and she's got so much out of everything. And he used to drop me. He used to drop me in to get the bus up to college for lectures, and I'd arrive at the Irish Field, and I was probably at the back of the class studying the form. But he'd give me money to get the bus, and as soon as he was gone, I'd be out there. We hitched in those days. I'd be out with a tub because like that £3 I would need it to eat like inside in the university campus, and I'd be really feeling rich for the day, and with my £3 I'd be able to actually go to the canteen and have my dinner or whatever. But I was more often down here than I was in college, but I still got my degree. And she even dressed me up. That's why I'm wearing pink today. Old rose are the silk colours of Barbara. And she dressed me up to go into the convent in Kildare to do my interview for my higher diploma in education, where you do a certain number of French and Irish teaching hours. And I had this lovely wool skirt with all her clothes, but she was nearly as slim as I was at that time, 6.5 stone or 7. Barbara was always elegant and beautiful. She dressed me up in this pink skirt, high shoes, just like I'm wearing today, that I could hardly walk in, because I'm only used to jeans and joggers. And I just remember feeling beautiful when I got the job anyway, and that's why I ended up teaching you too, subsequently later.
I was a model student, wasn't I?
The best. Only the best.
And Mrs. Collins, they were wonderful times, because Conrad was at the height of his success. Never a Curra meeting would go by without a well-backed Con Collins winner going in.
Particularly on Derby Day.
Particularly on Derby Day, yes.
Always Derby Day.
And
could line one up.
I can't remember all the names, but there were so many. But the Tyro Stakes was always his ambition. The 2-year-old race, the Tyro Stakes. And he must have won that about 6 or 7 or 8 times. And the only reason that I thought that was absolutely fantastic, because I had redone all the bathroom upstairs and everything, and they used to give any kind of a chalice or any kind of thing, they gave you a toothbrush about that size.
Really?
And I think I had about 7 or 8 of them, you know. And I'm down to 3 now, but I still have them. And they were toothbrushes about that size. But I can remember that so well. And I was thinking last night about all the horses that won on Derby Day. But the one that I always thought, Con never, ever, ever gave anybody a tip. Never. He'd say, they'll run well, or, you know, that's it. And we had this horse that Con had bought at Newmarket, and one of them who had won at Naas was going to be the favourite in the Tyro Stakes. And we used to have huge parties, like huge parties. I'd invite 100 and 200 would come.
Typical
They were legend, they were brilliant.
Yeah. And we used to have a tent from the army, and the army man, who was a colonel or something like that, used to bring down 6 privates, and they would put up a tent for me. And I used to have things that, but I would always say, so if I'm doing 100, I have to feed 200 people. And I would be up all night long, and the night before, cooking salmon and ham and all that sort of thing. But everybody loved to come to our parties. Absolutely loved to come to them. But the thing about it is, the only time I ever heard Con giving anybody a tip was he was at the door, and as they were going out, Con was never around. He was very busy, you know, and he was and he had to be over to the races, and he'd say, well, my one is going to be favourite, but don't leave the other one out. And of course, the one that was favourite was second, and Abergwan won it.
Oh, really?
Abergwan,
Yeah, I was
and
near
that's
that
the only time, and it was our first time out. And Con said, don't leave my other one out, because he was so delighted with this filly,
And how right he was, because we still have now the Abergwan Stakes still being run after all those years.
I heard all about Abergwan, but I wasn't here in that time.
And by the way, there was a hospital up in the Curra, and there were 4 nurses there, and when we all came back, delighted with us, we had 2 winners that day, we came back with ourselves there, and the next thing is, these 4 ladies came outside, and they said they came down to congratulate us on the win, and I said, was it Abergwan? And they said, yes. And he said, the 4 of us had 2 shillings and we got £284 back.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of money in those days.
Yeah,
fortune.
Fortune.
Yes.
Brilliant.
And funny, very few people here. My father was alive then, let's just show you how long ago it was. And my mother, if Con had 3 runners the races, she backed the 3 of them, you know, and everything. And she knew nothing whatsoever about horses, absolutely nothing. But my father always had 10 shillings on, and he had actually £2 on it, and he got over £1,000.
Really?
Yeah, like well over £1,000. Like he couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. It was quite amazing. Yeah. But that's the only time I ever heard him give a tip to anybody. Yeah. And they weren't paying a slight bit of attention to him. That was it.
Oh, they'd listen to. And it comes down. And Con used to love setting up horses for Galway, Tralee, Listowel, Killarney.
Yeah, he did.
And rarely did they miss.
He didn't really bet. He only bet about 4 times a year.
Really?
And if one of them came up, you were right. If 2 of them came up, you were really right. And if 3 of them came up, it was
More champagne.
more champagne, yeah. But he only bet about 4 times a year, yeah.
And Barbara, I remember when I was a kid, I was living on the Maddenstown side when I was a kid, and my dad was actually working at Mick O'Toole's.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So we'd be driving by and you'd see the marquee.
Yeah.
I think
very
a
large
tent wasn't doing it justice now calling it a tent. It was a big
Big
marquee.
marquee,
Yeah.
huge
And
marquee.
you'd see it was on the side of the house in the garden.
Out in the garden, yeah.
And it was up for a week, 10 days before the derby.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you,
Kevin, we were all out, the apprentices, we were the whitewashing. I remember, like, we'd be all out with brushes for about nearly one, whitewashing the stables, whitewashing the walls, whitewashing, you have the place looked magnificent. The roses, remember Stephen do all the roses?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He was here for years in his little Beetle Volkswagen,
Yeah.
and he'd have the roses all gorgeous, and the place looked magnificent Derby Day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, as you say, the big salmons that Barbara...
Well, I used to do 4
She did all the
salmons, 2 hams, then, you know, beef, huge amount of beef, lamb, and I had to stay in bed for a week
Pavlovas
after
and
that, you know.
strawberries
And I cooked it all
everything
myself.
like that.
Really?
Yeah, she
Every
did.
bit of it.
And is that where Natalie, of course,
Yeah.
Natalie
But I
Collins,
don't know why Natalie, because
is that where she got her
Natalie,
culinary skills from?
yeah, but maybe she did, yeah.
But like I said,
I
I
never,
picked up all
couldn't
those Barbara. They say I make the best pavlova ever. I can do roulades. I do a big salmon and derby in the middle of the day. I've carried on an awful lot of traditions, and I reckon that the life skills that I left here, like, I've nothing but praise for, like, all the little things. Like, even when you rode a winner, Barbara made you write a thank you card to,
Yeah.
like, when I rode the winner No Princesses was for the Ben Dunn Empire, like, which was in Miss McMahon, his daughter's colours. When I rode for Claudia Hall Dare, you know, the black and yellow colours, you wrote a thank you letter, and I still do that now. Everybody gets kind of cards or letters to me, and I learned all that, just how
you sent a letter.
thank you, and to acknowledge,
Yeah,
Which is vitally important,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
one thing which I love too, and I think I'm the same now as Barbara in a sense, she never treated anybody else different to anybody else. We were all equal. Whether it was Frank Hardy, Sean Collins, all these owners coming in, I was treated as one of the family. But the lads in the yard were treated with respect. They were all brought in for their breakfast. Everybody got porridge, tea, toast. We were all fed in the kitchen. Like, we were all knocking each other down or whatever, and everybody, we were all treated so equally. And like, you never felt that you're better than anybody or you were lesser than, you know, you were all the same. And like, even with Barbara at the races, no matter who she was, if she was with the Queen at the races, this is Helen, my friend, or she was our number 1 apprentice jockey, or she'd say something to make you feel good and love. No matter who you'd meet her, whether you met her at the races years later in Paris or Ascot or wherever, Barbara would welcome you into the entourage wherever you were, or champagne bar at the Derby. Come in, Helen, have a glass. And I would like to think I've carried on a lot like that. I'm the same. I love my little jockeys, as my daughters tell me. Like, they reckon they got more attention than I gave them, because I worked in racing involved with jockeys all my life. And I think that's why I actually decided she had to be a stand-up comedian to end up getting a bit of attention, like, because
She's getting a lot of attention because she's hugely successful, actually, being.
But she made it out of me, unfortunately, making jokes out of me. My mother was a jockey, you know, and all these. But
Did she get a BAFTA?
She did get a BAFTA.
She
yes,
did get a BAFTA, yeah.
And I reckon my other daughter will, for fashion that she learned from Mrs. Collins too. Sinead is a costume designer for the movies. She did Pursuit of Love was out recently. You know, all that. There was a lot of talk, but the costumes are amazing, and they were they got an Oscar for Little Women. She was in the costumes of Little Women as well. And I reckon she'll get a BAFTA now. So she's out on her own as Sinead Cadow now. So I reckon next year she'll get a BAFTA for that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that maybe next week that I might win a Godolphin Racing and Breeding Award for my contribution to the services industry, and that'll knock the BAFTAs off the wall. Completely. Yeah. I'm telling you, the Oscars and the BAFTAs will be pushed aside because they're lovely trophies.
It'll be like the rose, it'll be centrepiece on the table.
I have my eye on one of them, but look, I am up against strong competition, you know, so who knows? We won't know till next Wednesday.
But that's for people who don't know you, Helen, that just is so deserving that you've been nominated, because you've worked in every aspect of it. You've helped so many people like in your obviously in your path in the Irish Jockeys Trust, and also in the apprentice school as well. And I know two guys that I used to look after, Jamie Moriarty and Shane Gorey. You were so helpful to them when they decided to go back to college. They'd achieved what they were going to achieve riding, and you couldn't have been more helpful for them to help them pursue or give them advice and what direction they wanted to go in.
I think it is important that they have somebody that can actually talk to and feel comfortable with and understand education and training and understand career paths within the industry. I love if they can come back, go out of it for a while to get the education and skills. Because the day you stand down from being a jockey, that's it. As you know, you have to acquire other skills. If you want to go into the media like you do, you have to kind of learn media skills or some other skills. You want to be a box driver, you have to learn how to actually drive a box. And now you need your cert, you need your license. Whatever path within the industry or out of the industry, you have got to now go back and get certificate training. And I suppose they see the fact that I was an apprentice jockey like them, have the passion and the love for racing and understand it, and then worked in vocational education for so long between the Kerr Post Primary where I taught in the convent in Kildare, taught you in the De La Salle in Kildare Academy. Yeah. And understand education and training and understand the importance of vocational education within the horse racing and breeding industry. And I must say, in fairness to like Derek O'Sullivan, Stan Cosgrove, all those, they believed in social care, which is very important too, like looking after your apprentices, giving them proper diet, nutrition, exercise. And as I say, here I learned that in Collins, Mrs. Collins treated all the apprentices the same, all brought into the kitchen, for their breakfasts, their meals, and treated equally. And I think, and they feel comfortable coming in to talk to me. I mean, come in for a cup of tea or a chat, and then you might discover there's something else bothering them, and you can, get them that help first before they're able to go back into whatever education training. But like we've Emmett McNamara as well, he's kept riding, rode a Derby winner last year, and he's a qualified lawyer as well. There's so many that I've been involved with, but look, it's all in a day's work, it's behind the scenes, and I have to say, it's nice that Godolphin does, and acknowledge the people that work so hard behind the scenes. And here in Cunningham Lodge, the work that Barbara did, Con was out there, but Barbara was the strength behind the organisation here. My God, she was one that kept all those colours ironed, clean, washed, you know what I mean? All the administration that went on in the office, looking after all the apprentices. As you say, incredible, dressing me up for the derbies, the different parts. God, lending me her clothes. Should we share clothes all the time? Just wonderful, absolutely. As you say, Manana here.
Thank you.
And the Collins family, you're synonymous with the Curragh and Kildare.
Absolutely, and I knew nothing about horses when I got married to Colin.
And how did you and Con meet?
We met when I was 18.
Okay.
And first ever, Frank Hardy, you remember Frank Hardy?
Yes, he used to have horses. Yes.
And Frank Hardy was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And his family we were at school together at the Green. I left school, never having worn a long dress or anything, because my father wouldn't definitely let me have a dog or a bicycle in case something would happen to me. And I always remember that, always. And he was the most gorgeous man, most delightful man. But Philomena, Phil said to me, the boys want to know, do you want to come to our staff dance, which was on in the Shelbourne? And I said, I was just after doing my leaving, and I thought it was the greatest thing of all time. So I got myself all dressed up, and they collected me and they brought me over. And Con was at the table. And Con asked me to dance. And I danced with him, and I danced with Frank, and then he asked me to dance again. By the way, he had a girlfriend there with him.
Oh, right, okay.
And I was only 18. First time ever in a long dress at a huge party. I thought it was the greatest thing of all time. And I said goodbye to him and I went off. And then, about 3 weeks later, my mother said, there was a very nice man on the phone looking for you, you see. And I said, it was Con Collins. I said, I met him at the Hardy thing, so that was okay. So he then, like I was doing all sorts of other things then. And my mother said, "That's a very nice man, is after ringing again looking for you." So it went on for about 2 years, maybe 3
He was
years.
persistent anyway.
Oh, he was, yeah.
I used to go to the Phoenix Park with my father, and then eventually he would say to me, "Will you come to dinner with me tonight?" And I'd say, "No, I can't, because I'm going to Paris in the morning and I can't go." But I always had an excuse. And then one night he said to me, "Why won't you come out with me?" And I said to him, "Because I have a very busy job and I go to Europe quite a bit." And he said to me, "Well," I said, "But I tell you, if you ask me for next week, I can come some night next week." You know?
And what was your job at the time? Do you mind asking?
I was worked for Switzerland. They were all buyer
Yes.
for the thing.
For fashion?
Yeah.
Fashion, yeah.
So that's where the fashion
and
comes in.
and then I used to go all over.
And Switzer's is now Brown Thomas.
That's exactly it. Yeah. I was interested in fashion. I was really
course.
interested in it. And I went out to dinner with him that one night, and then he said to me, "Come out to dinner with me tomorrow night." And I said, "Yes, I will." So I went out to dinner with him then, and then he said to me, "Will you come out to dinner with me on Saturday?" And I said, I went to the room then. And on the fourth night I went out, I decided I'd marry him.
Nice God. 4 dates.
Yeah.
4 days.
4 days.
Con proposed to you.
No, we didn't know. We didn't even know I was fancying marrying him at all.
Oh,
No.
right.
No.
So you told him you were going to marry him?
No, I did not. In my head, that was, I would marry him. And then he asked me about 2 months later.
Really?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
But he was much older than me. Like, he was much older. Because when I saw him when I was 18, like, he was 33.
Really?
Yeah. He was 32.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he was 32. He was 32, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you moved down to the Curragh.
Oh, and I thought I would just die down here because but I had to give up my job.
Oh, in those days, women, you had to give
Oh,
up
did
your
you?
job.
Yeah,
Yes,
I had to give
yes.
up my
job. Oh, yeah.
It only stopped in 1975,
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
it?
it,
About
yeah,
then.
yeah.
So people don't even realise like how unusual it was. Like
Yeah.
even for, like as you say, for a woman to get a jockey's license or even to be riding in it,
Yeah,
as I say, like even if you were even a teacher,
Yeah.
once you got married,
That was it.
That was it.
up to 1975, women could no longer work.
You no longer work. But in any case,
You were dependent
I
on
was
your
home.
husband for the rest of your life.
I was in
Thank
Switzerland.
God they
and-
changed it.
Thank God is right.
I had
still
the most
working.
marvelous time in Switzerland. I really had the most amazing job. Like, but when I came on the car, I really couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it.
Chalk and cheese.
Well, my father was an architect, but he wasn't a real ambitious architect. He worked in the Dublin Corporation on Parnell Square, and he, we had a lovely warm house. And I came here, and I used to have to wear my coat all day. I was frozen, and I really couldn't believe what it was like to live in the country. And that was it. But in any case, I got used to it. That was it.
Must have taken a while to get used to it, though. You obviously you're moving to the country. There's a yard full of racehorses out there as well.
Yeah.
And jockeys.
And jockeys as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a complete culture shock.
Totally. But funny. But
So it wasn't long. You settled into the Curragh.
oh, it took an awful long time.
And obviously you were an integral part of the business.
But you see, I adored my husband.
Mm.
And I did all what he wanted me to do. And that's it. And we had a very, very happy marriage.
Yeah, they were great. It was great.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah,
very
yeah.
happy house. Like there was the love
Yeah.
that was there.
Yeah,
And I felt so much part of it. Like
Yeah.
you know.
And you were an integral part of the business.
Oh, she was.
well, I
huge.
wasn't really, you know.
Ah, you were.
Oh my gosh,
You're.
Barbara, you were.
Yeah.
You're.
No, I wasn't really. Yeah,
You're-
Colin was the part of the business.
Well,
yeah.
he was the trainer and all
Yeah.
like that. But there's so much more to training horses. Like as you say, it's that person that can have the interpersonal skills to deal with the owner.
I've never
as you
said all
say.
this before.
Have you not?
Yeah.
No.
She was huge. She,
No,
as you
no.
say,
You
like
see, Helen
those
brings
Derby
these things out.
birthdays.
Yeah, of course.
No,
Yeah.
she was.
I mean,
huge
nobody.
part.
Well, but the only thing about it is, I must say, Con was persistent.
He was.
Yeah.
He was.
He was
But
going to have me.
Barbara, do you remember he used to? This is now how much they treated me like his family. After the races on a Saturday, whether it's up in Dublin, wherever, Phoenix Park or Leopardstown or whatever, we always came back to Kildare, back to the Jockey Hall.
Yeah.
And I was always brought to the Jockey Hall with them for dinner. It was like a triumvirate, like it was just the three of us, Barbara, me and Con. Con used to love to go off and play his darts, you see, at old Kilcullen over in Bernie's old Kilcullen and say whatever.
Yeah.
And Barbara and I'd sit there and we'd have a lovely meeting, we'd meet all the people after the races and everything. She was great fun. Then I'd drive her home.
That's it, it was great.
And for some of the local people who are watching this was then known in later times as Naginski's.
Naginski's nightclub.
It was a no-go area from lads who went to school in Kildare town, for obvious reasons.
I remember I had grown up with like all the jockeys, and they were my friends, whatever, in here at Cunningham Lodge. And I remember when I met my late husband Brian, who was a vet in the Curragh, and Brian was 6'1", I'd say, or he was a tall guy, and I'm this small little girl, and all my friends are jockeys, and they're all 5 foot nothing. I convinced Brian once only, and with difficulty, to go to Naginski's nightclub.
I can see where he was coming.
And I was a dancer, I just loved it, and I'd be out on the floor, all my little jockeys, and I'd go mad, and he thought out of the place. He hated dancing, was self-conscious, out of the place he'd never get. But it was at its best, I think, as a restaurant. It was fabulous.
It was fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
It was the place to go, like, for a meal.
And Paul, the chef down there, used to come up and take all the herbs out of my garden.
Really?
Yeah. He used to come and I used to do sorrel and parsley and coriander and all the things that I wanted to cook with.
Even then you were superb cook.
And I always
Cordon bleu.
Horseradish. Real horseradish.
Really?
I still have it.
Really?
Yeah, and still grows. I mean, we chop it up and we do it with cream and all that.
And of course, I just touched on it early on in the interview. This is obviously where Natalie Collins is renowned. Newbury Silverware, Irish National Stud. Her culinary skills are renowned throughout, not just in the county, I think in the country as well. And obviously, Natalie is inherited from you,
but
Mrs.
the
Collins.
thing is, I couldn't cook when I got married.
Okay.
I read all the books.
Really?
Yeah. Excuse me, incorrect. I could cook a curry. That was the only thing I could cook, because my mother wasn't a great. Well, she was a home cook, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But I could cook a curry, and Con said, "A what?"
Curries wouldn't have been that popular in Ireland back in those days.
Yeah, I went on to the continent, and I knew all these things. And I told him, and he had the most gorgeous kind of coleslaw, and he always took the strips out of cabbage, you know, the hard bit of cabbage, and he used to chop that up, and a bit of carrot and mayonnaise, and it was absolutely, I mean, it was like exotic, but people used to look at it. But I used to give it to them.
See, a lot of people back in those days wouldn't have had as much travelling experience as you had.
Exactly, yeah. But it was quite extraordinary. But Con, I want to tell you now, that Con let me do whatever I wanted to do. Anything I wanted to do, he let me do it. He never changed me. He never. I'm exactly the same as I was then.
Yes. No, he was brilliant too. The same as even as an apprentice. If you lost a race, which you did or whatever, there was nothing said about it or whatever. That was it. It was down to experience, and he was a great mentor.
How many winners did you ride?
Well, for the Collinses I rode 4, and like in those days it was like you got so many rides every year, so like over to 4, then you had to stop riding at 23 if you were an apprentice, so I didn't have as long. Normal apprentices would be 16 to 23, so they'd have 8 years or so to ride their outdoor claim, 7 years to ride outdoor claim. But like I came into, because I did my leaving cert, and I only had 3 years. So you were only getting about two winners a year, like, you know, so that's the way it went.
But that's
about 3
years,
great. Whatever.
We were delighted with it.
But I went on to Australia afterwards, after I did my degree, and I had 15 rides, a winner, 2 seconds, and a third over there out of my 15 rides. But just great experience again. I think having those life skills for any young jockey, whatever, going abroad is fantastic. Yeah. That's education in itself or whatever, and as you say, if you have learned during your apprenticeship your interpersonal skills, you can travel the world with it. And only yesterday I got a call from a graduate out of a race called Noel Connolly, and I was meant to be on my day off yesterday, and he wanted 2 guys to go out to Dubai to work for him out there. John Hyden himself keep in touch with me a lot. Usually looking for just work riders for a few months out there. But they go out and they get great experience, and they come back then, like, you know, and they had that little buzz to keep them going for the next season or whatever, just to go abroad for a few months. Does them the world of good, like, as well, you know.
Well, it broadens your mind as well.
Broadens your mind. And they watch other and then as well, the Irish jockeys, like their horsemanship skills and their empathy with animals and everything's renowned, and they're delighted to have them all over the world, like. And when I go anywhere now, I could travel no matter where I was, and I meet somebody that has graduated either out of race or, as I say, I met as a jockey, as an apprentice jockey, somewhere along the lines, like, you know, and keep in touch all the time. Like yesterday, even like when they saw that I had been nominated for this award, like I was getting these flashes from the back. John Hillis contacted me from Dermot. Well, you were with John Hillis and Dermot as well.
No, I'm only 42.
Oh, you're
43,
right.
so
he
I'm
said
only
to me,
child.
40 years ago, Helen, I sat in your class in race.
I was only 3 back
that.
then,
Yeah, imagine that. John Hillis sent me this message.
And his brother Ron Hillis.
Ron Hillis.
They were very successful in Germany, weren't they?
Germany. He's training in Germany now and still very successful. And I don't know if you saw in America there, Jeremiah Dwyer and Jerry Dwyer.
Yeah.
He's training out in America now.
Right.
He's doing very, very successful. And another chap, John Innes, had his first winner, I think, as a trainer the other day.
Both of those were apprenticed to Mick Alfred on the Curragh.
That's right. When I went out as part of the Ocala Newbridge Twinning there to promote the Curragh a couple of years back. And I would met them all while I was over there, and it's great again to see when you go abroad like that how well the Irish are doing, and they're working in racing and they're doing well. And it all starts from, you know, from the training education to get with the trainers here in Ireland, and I owe a lot to my apprenticeship. And as well, it teaches you to accept disappointment, because there's more ups or more downs, like, you know, in racing than there are ups, like, you know what I mean. And you learn to accept disappointment. And like I was widowed at 30 years of age, like, you know, and you've the carpet pulled from underneath your feet, and you've learned that from being in a racing yard and getting up
and obviously
and
that was
work,
very,
like,
very tragic times.
Yes, you know, so I think it teaches resilience, and I think that's the great thing about I'd recommend to anybody to be an apprentice from 16 to 26, give it 10 years in racing. And then you can go back at, say, 23, say even 3 years, if you realise you're not going to the next level of being, you know, into a professional jockey and can make it, and you're having trouble with your weight, and then you can go back into other avenues of the industry and acquire skills, you know, and that's what I would always say. Make out like a 10-year plan, and then you might have to adjust it back to 5 years, you know, accordingly. But like, set yourself goals and work, give it your best shot, whatever you're doing. Be present in the moment, give it your best shot for that length of time. And then if things are not happening, have a conversation with somebody. Don't keep it in here. Talk to people. Come in and have a chat with somebody. Talk to your trainer. Sit down with your trainer, with Barbara there, or somebody. Just tell them what's going on in your head or whatever, and she can advise you, or somebody older can help you along. Like, but talk to somebody.
And Barbara, Cunningham Lodge, how long has it been in the Collins family now?
It's been here since 1931.
1931.
Nearly 100 years.
Yes.
My gosh, yeah.
And but funny, I'm the longest one here.
Really?
I'm 58 years here.
58 years.
Yeah. I'm 50. And because my mother-in-law, who actually didn't like me when I got married, she approved me. That
Why?
She liked me.
Why?
Because I was not a farm kind of thing. I didn't know anything. Anything about race. But we used to go to the Phoenix Park with my father, but nothing about racing. But she came round very quick, so, and she told me, I thought it was the nicest thing that anybody ever said to me. She said to me, and she knew she was dying, and she said to me, "You are my favourite daughter." And I thought that was the nicest thing that anybody could have it said to me, you know. And I thought it was just, but she was very matriarchal. And because she had loads of skills, like, you know, she had loads of skills, like she had. She was brought up on a farm, and she was, I mean, this with the skirts up to here, and it was not approved of. Not approved, because we used to wear the skirts up to there.
I know, sure, I used to love my minis too. Like,
Yeah, right up to there.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, but eventually, and she used to come and stay with me all the time, and you know, and she was great to me. She was marvellous to me, you know, but I never met Con's father. He died the year before we got married. Or no, maybe 2 years before, yeah. And I never met. And Bridie, his secretary, do you remember Bridie?
I remember Bridie well, Bridie Heffernan.
Bridie was, she was just unbelievable. And funny, Bridie was so straight and so disciplined, and she wouldn't spend a shilling. But she built all those apartments inside there, and
the
Heffernans.
Oh yes, the old builder providers.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would ring Con. She said, "No, I'll get him to ring you now immediately." She definitely approved of me, which was quite extraordinary.
I know, which was great, really.
And we were friends for years.
And
Actually, funny enough, when I talk about having the big parties, Bridie would be out here at 6:30 that morning, cutting the hams. And doing all, she was a marvellous carver because Con taught her, or his father taught her how to carve.
Okay.
And she was brilliant, but I don't know why I talked about that, but anyways.
It's very interesting, it's intriguing. And Derby, the Curragh Derby weekend, the build-up would go on for a couple of weeks beforehand. Obviously Con would be
very busy with
very busy, exactly, just putting the fine touches on the Derby runners and Derby weekend runners. What was it like for you, the build-up to the Derby, going to the Derby? What's your favourite memories of Derby Day, Derby weekend?
That I had, usually they were invited for 12 o'clock, and I think it was the race started at 2:30 or something like that. And I'd have 200 people here, and I would be going around and seeing them all, and there'd be a lot of them moving off over to the Curragh, and then the rest of them would stay for the day, and I had to stay for the day. So
you missed most of the Derby?
Well, no, not all the time. Sometimes we had a runner.
You'd always arrive.
And then when I came back, they would be all here, and they'd be still eating.
I found that too when I'd have a Derby party, and they'd all come, like your story, Barbara, it'd start at the same lark, they'd arrive or whatever, and I'd end up like either I'd be the one serving whatever, and everybody enjoying themselves drink. I'd invariably maybe not even get to see the Derby, or rush to go over and come back exhausted. But my memory is I rode on Derby Day, two rides at the Curragh in 1978 when Troy won it. But I rode in, I can't remember the name of the race, but I know it was a sprinter called Flaming Eagle in one of the sprint races. And I was drawn in the starting, so that Lester Pickett on one side and Willie Shoemaker on the other side. And Willie Carson rode in that race as well. And I thought, my God, but they didn't even know maybe if it was a boy or a girl, because when you're up in your suits or whatever, just it was an apprentice to make sure she wasn't in your way. But I finished 4th in that race, which was great. And then I finished 3rd on Rodante in another race, like a handicap or something near the end, whatever. But that was great memories too for Derby Day. And then you'd come back here and I'd dress up in probably some of Barbara's beautiful clothes and mingle with all the celebrities.
But the thing about it, I had so many people that came here, you know, that like all the Watts from Tattersalls used to come, and all the, I mean, I knew the old man Watt, I mean, he was absolutely delicious, and he just absolutely loved Dublin. He just absolutely loved it. He thought it was a beautiful city. And when I would go over it, he always gave me lunch, and he would talk to me about all the buildings in Dublin and all that sort of thing. But they would all come. And then not my favourite, but really, Victor McCallum and Bunny. Victor would drop Bunny here and go over to the lunch of the Curragh, and Bunny would always come here and say, "That's great, I'm here." You mustn't say that.
That's right, I remember lots staying here not getting to the races at all, like the men at all.
Like Christopher St. Lawrence and Penny, they were, you know, but you know, people brought people.
Of course.
You know, I mean,
Carlos.
And I'll tell you who was here too. Robert Mitchell.
Oh, really?
Was here one day. Because I was thinking last night, who were the people? Yeah, and Robert Mitchell. There was a solicitor down in Tralee, And the next thing is, he arrived in with Robert Mitchell because he was doing some sort of film down in Kerry.
Okay.
And he arrived in, and I guess, but seemingly, 3 people on the road up came down and said to me, was that Robert Mitchell that was in the car looking for your house, you know? And I said, yeah. And I said,
Who's Robert Mitchell?
yeah, well, that was on Saturday, yeah. But, he arrived in, and he was the nicest man I ever met. He really was the nicest man. And he said to me, what was the name? Oh, I can't remember the name of the whiskey that he said, I have that, but I have a bottle out in the car. And I said, no, I have one in the press. I can't remember the name of it now. But it was a Scotch whiskey that he had, and I had it in the press. And he said, he was very pleased about that. Oh, very pleased about that. And he drank it like this. And then he was telling me about his daughter being in Trinity. And how he loved it. And he sent me a lovely letter too, and I don't know what happened to it, you know, I never kept it. Yeah. It was very foolish of me. But I had loads of
And he was one of the big A-list stars, actors at the time, wasn't he, Robert Mitchell?
A whole lot of them, you know. And he
can't ever get a horse off him.
No, he wasn't interested in horses.
Okay.
No, he wasn't interested in horses. But he was so
just
delighted
with the
to be there. And he couldn't believe that we had parties like that here. Couldn't believe it, like they were in a tent. And we were...
A marquee is, tent isn't doing it justice.
No,
But they were legend, in fairness.
But the thing about it, he was just such a nice man. And I'm funny, my sister-in-law, Colin's sister, Kay, was over from America. And I said, Robert Mitchell's outside there. He said, oh yeah, and that was it. And then she went on. Then they left. They went to the races, you know. But I was still here. But I was going to the races that day. And he said, and the next thing she said, well, how is Robert Mitchell? And I said, he's just gone. Huh? She said, she couldn't believe it. She said, yeah, it was funny, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, we had parties up to that. Con died, and now we just have a few owners. We were at the height of it then.
In the times when I was here, they were at the height of
Yeah.
you know, all those
was
70s, 80s were years.
And we had Alfie McLean and Barney Eastwood, and they'd all arrive. Yeah.
Big owners of years at the
Oh,
time.
absolutely huge owners. Yeah, huge owners. And Ben Dunn always came. Yeah. And I remember Margaret came with. Margaret wanted to have, she had a daughter and 2 sons, and she wanted to have another daughter, and she tried for ages to have another little boy, Bernard, and they named him Bernard, and he came down and he said, and he was about 2, and he'd say, John Stores is
better value.
Huh?
Better value makes
better
them
value,
all.
better value.
Beats them all, isn't it?
I'm Bernard, something like I'm Bernard, he used to say. And he was about 3.
Isn't that
and John Stores is better value. I'm Bernard. And John Stores is better
That was starting
yeah,
on.
his grandfather had him saying this,
Of course.
you see, but they, and I mean all the people like Hugh McCalmont and Ginny McCalmont. Do you know about that?
I remember the McCalmonts, of course I do. Yes.
Friends of the Bolton Glass.
Yeah, you know,
they
I mean,
were big owners here as well.
And Hugh.
And Claudia Haldare, she was one of the
Claudia
biggest.
Haldare was at it, and Claudie's father, who had the horses here first. And she hadn't got a clue about horses.
You're still great friends to this day, aren't you, Claudia?
Oh,
you go abroad to South America and all that.
I was talking to her yesterday, and she, like, Bobby was very much a Punchestown fan. And he was really, and he used to give the most amazing parties. And, but this is totally different. He was like Punchestown, and he would come and he'd say, Con, I want Barbara to come and have lunch with me after whatever club it was that he went to, and there would be 11 men and me. And he'd say, and Con, you wouldn't be interested. and he was such...
Con didn't do small talk, did he? You know,
well, the thing is that, I mean, he didn't want to be with 11 men and me, you know, there's no doubt about it. And Con, you say, oh, she'd be delighted to go.
Well, ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking time out to chat to us. And it's been very, very interesting. As I said at the top of the interview, two legends of the Curragh and Kildare and racing in general, of course. Mrs. Barbara Collins, the matriarch of the Collins family, and Mrs. Helen O'Sullivan, of course, the mother of Aisling B.
Thank you. She'll be delighted.
And
Sinead O'Sullivan.
Okay, I forgot about I forgot that one. Yeah,
But just put that in. You must put that
very
in.
important. Tina, put that in.
And I'm the mother of 3 daughters.
Yes.
2 of them were trainers and 1 of them is in food.
Yes.
That's it. Sheena, Tracy and Natalie, whom I adore.